All right, so good evening, everyone. My name is Luis Verespedia. I serve as chair of the Historic Districts Commission in Concord. Welcome to the March 21, 2023 meeting of the Town of Concord Historic Districts Commission. The commission will review 1 continuance and 3 new applications this evening. I will make an announcement at the beginning of the meeting, and we will also conduct additional business at the end of the meeting. We're conducting this meeting online in accordance with the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Executive Order, suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law. The public may access this call through both telephone and video conferencing. Members of the public will have an opportunity to ask questions and provide public comment on applications and discussions following the petitioner's presentation and questions from the commission. To do so, please raise your hand in the participant function of the Zoom meeting platform. If you are calling in and cannot use the platform, you may raise your hand by dialing *9. Our host will mute microphones of those not speaking, and in order to preserve bandwidth, and may need to turn off video with the exception of the commissioners, the host, and the current applicant. I will call on each commissioner for comments on an application and then open the meeting for public comment. Once there are no more public comments, I will ask for a motion from the commission to continue, to approve with conditions, or to reject a second, and conduct a roll call vote. Once the commission has acted on an application, the applicant is free to leave the meeting. We will do a roll call of the members of the commission now. Kate Schartener, I understand, will be absent. Walter Clay?
Present.
Dennis Fiore?
Present.
Will Hewitt, I understand, will be absent, as well as Catherine Mast. Henry Moss? He most likely will be absent. Melinda Shumway will be absent. Paul Ware?
Yes, present.
And I am here. So voting members this evening will be all commissioners present. That means Walter Clay, Dennis Fiore, Paul Ware, Timothy Whitney, and myself. I wanted to check with our coordinator, with the town planner, because I understand that the continued public hearing, the applicant has requested that there be a continuance without discussion to the April 20th meeting. So I would like to change the order of the applications and consider this continued public hearing first, and then proceed to the new public hearings. Is it, Haley, is that correct in my understanding that the applicant wants to continue to the 20th meeting? So I will ask the members of the commission for a motion to continue the application of First Parish Unitarian Church, 26 Lexington Road, American Mile Historic District, to construct an accessible entry addition to the Wright Tavern, Pocket Park, and other associated landscape changes.
I move that we grant the request for continuance to First Parish Unitarian Church, 2-6 Lexington Road, to our next meeting, but I don't remember the date of that.
April 20th.
April 20th.
I'll second it.
Okay, I'm gonna ask for a vote now. Walter?
Aye.
Dennis?
Aye.
Paul?
Aye.
And Timothy?
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well, so the motion is approved, and we will consider this application on April 20th. So the next application, it's the new public hearing is Jin Nye from 100 Case Road, Unit 110, to install a new patio door, window, and trim. Is the applicant here?
I am representing Gene. My name is Scott Thayer.
Welcome, Mr. Thayer. If you can mention what the proposal is.
Sure. The existing patio door and associated transom windows would be replaced with an Anderson sliding window, side panel, and transom windows, consistent with what's been done in the building and many times over.
Okay, do we have any plans or any documents? Sure. Okay. Okay,
So this is the proposed.
all right, that's what it's proposed, and that's what was before, right?
Yes,
Okay.
this is the existing.
So before I ask the commissioners for comments, I will mention that we have been making efforts to try to make this type of application, this particular building, almost to be approved by administratively, as they always conform with the regulations, and they are essentially the same ones. But I will ask the commissioners for comments. And I have to correct my. I need to get out of, okay. I'll go with Walter.
It appears to be extremely straightforward. I have no problem that I can see.
Dennis?
I sat through a number of these and I agree with you. It should be administrative. I think it's an improvement and I think it's just fine.
Thank you. Paul?
No comment.
Timothy?
I have no comment. It looks good.
And I have no comments either. I think it looks pretty good. Any comments from the public? Well, in the absence of public comments, I will ask the commission for a vote. For a motion?
I move that we approve the application for a certificate of appropriateness with respect to Unit 110 at 100 Kais Road to install the patio door, window, and trim as represented.
A second?
Second.
Okay, I'm going to ask you vote backwards now. Timothy?
Aye.
Paul?
Aye.
Dennis?
Aye.
Walter?
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well. So the motion is approved. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Now we will go and proceed to the second application, which is Daryl and Andrew Pedder, 252 Main Street, in the Main Street Historic District, to replace windows and Widow's Walk. Applicant here.
Yeah, hi, Andrew here.
How are you,
I'm
Andrew?
good. Thanks for your time. And
Well, welcome to the meeting. If you can present to us as before.
sure, yeah. So it's been a few years since we've come before you with all the renovations, but we've got to that time now where we've got a project to replace the windows and replace the damaged Widow's Walk on the top of the property. And I'm thankfully here with Lisa, who will take you through all the details.
Good evening, I'm Lisa Damiak from the Shattuck Architects. I'd gone to the library's special collection just to kind of check out what was there for the photographs, because there was a question about the 1/1 windows that exist on the house, if they were original or not. And what I did find was the Frederick Woodward house had been in the previous location of what is now 252 Main Street, and they actually picked that up and moved it over to 21 Thoreau Street, which I have a picture of that building. And so then the new house was built in, it's a little sketchy, 1889 through 1892. There's in the macros, there's a little bit of confusion as to when the actual date was. But so the new house is shown here. And if you go to the next slide, the 1/1 windows are shown here. On the front, the dormers had the 6/6 windows, and in previous applications we had approved insert windows that were 6/6 to replace the windows in the dormers. So we've had those approved before. When we did the previous, if you go to the next slide, some of the windows on the original back of the house did have some 6/6 windows, but most of the windows on the front of the house and the sides of the house had the 1/1 units. We have, as you know, done previous renovations to this house, and we've continued with Marvin 1/1 windows. They were wood framed clad sash units to continue to look authentic with the way the trim is applied instead of having the clad frame. So this is the current situation with the windows, and we have in the past on a lot of these houses on Main Street refurbished the windows, made them work proper more easily, had the weights replaced, had new storms put on the windows. The problem is that when you do all of that, we still have the pockets of air around the entire window, and so the air is still coming through even if you've got the storm windows. And so the client is looking to try and make the house a little bit more energy efficient. By putting an insert window in here, they can fill the pockets with insulation and be able to reduce heating costs and try and reduce the carbon footprint that this house is using. The other things that you can see in this photograph is the widow's walk. On the last photograph, or even on this photograph, isn't in very good shape. And if you continue down, I think you can see a few more photographs of it's kind of falling off the house a little bit. I have some more close-up photos if you go down a couple slides. That one there, yeah. So this is kind of what the look of the current widow's walk is happening. So just to back up to the go 2 slides back, if you could, to the 2 photographs of the windows. So the existing double hungs, I was kind of showing a close-up of what the existing double hung with the insert double hung, the look of them, how they kind of look at the corners, the lines that go around the windows. I feel like it's pretty similar in terms of the look of that we're not really changing the look from the exterior. I know we don't have the storms on them, and we didn't do this on the previous project, but we can do just half screens to kind of mimic the look of the storms, because the storms really usually only have the half screens. And we're proposing, go to the next slide, using the same Marvin windows. Oh, sorry, the one that says Marvin on it. The same Marvin windows that we used in the rest of the project. So they're clad sash, they're clad frame as because they're the inserts, but most of the insert is behind the edge of the existing trim. They would look basically exactly the same as the windows, the clad windows that are currently on the house, and we wouldn't be changing the trim by doing this. We're not doing the inserts, we're not changing any of the trim on the exterior of the house, so it's remaining all the same. All of the windows would be inserted from the interior of the house, and then the pockets would be filled with insulation, and the glass is more energy efficient. White clad material, light breakup would be 1/1s, and as I said, the half screens. And then if you go to slide number 12, this is the current deck in the back of the house, and this is the current railing and post configuration. And we were looking to try and do a similar, we're proposing to do a similar layout for the widow's walk. We had kind of looked into trying to do the gooseneck railing and everything is really cost prohibitive. It's like 3 times the amount that it's going to cost to do this railing system that we already have currently on the house. So we were hoping to continue with this style on the roof where the widow's walk is. And I think that was it. I think I have the last slide, I think is just kind of showing the different materials, calling them out as to the post cap and the bases, and what the rail would look like with a cap on top, like it is similarly at the first floor or on the deck. So the deck is showing kind of a mahogany rail at the top. We would be actually putting an AZAC or a PVC rail on the top there. And the reasoning behind asking for the PVC is just because it's up so high, and so you know, maintenance is really difficult in that location, and we want it to look good for a longer period of time and not kind of look like it's looking right now. So thank you.
Thanks very much, Lisa, for that nice presentation. I think that the issues here is the wheels walk and the windows. I think that those are the main topics of the discussion.
Mhm.
So as we have a significant change or additions to the windows, I'm going to ask Dennis to start the discussion.
A question, I wasn't involved with the first window. Which windows were replaced initially in your first round of windows?
So they were the ones that we had replaced with inserts are those 2 in the dormer on the front, because those are bedrooms, and if we were replacing them with the code, they actually look like double hungs, but they're really casements so that we have the egress. And then the ones around the back, all the 3rd floor ones, -3 because we were changing the locations, were inserts to replace those windows. And so look wise, you can't really tell that they're inserts, I feel like, and that's kind of why I showed that photograph of the 2 windows side by side, is really you can't see a lot of this because these windows don't have buttons on them. Really, the edge frame is all we're kind of comparing to what we're currently seeing, and you know, before and after.
Yeah, I think they look fine, but the windows you're replacing now, they're ones in the front. And
Yeah.
as far as you know, are they the original windows in the house?
Yes.
So you want to take out the original windows on that house and replace them. And,
Yeah,
and for clarification, I understand the fact they are not as tight. And you said yourself that you've done other houses in town where they've repaired the windows. Did you also say, though, that you could make up for these cold pockets by insulating them?
If you're going to keep the weight pockets, or use the chains and everything, there's really and still have those mechanisms working, there's no way of really insulating those pockets.
But there are other ways of taking early windows and making them go up and down without weights. Isn't that true?
There are you can do what are called sash replacements and have new jambs kind of put in and new sashes put into those units. They don't take the original windows, not that I know of, because of I'm not sure. I'd have to check, but I know that you can do the sash replacements that they put in jams, so they don't have to be inserts. But they replace the jams and put in new sashes, and then they can also fill the pockets. That's another way of doing the replacement windows.
Yeah, I have to say I'm not gung ho on destroying original windows in a house and putting new ones in, even if they look the same.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, if I could set that aside for a minute, the balustrade, could you show that again, what the original one looked like on the top? So it has this curve in it, and you had proposing is making it straight without the curve.
Mhm.
And if you go to the front of the house again, the front shot of the house, you can see that this curve was intended to reflect this. So that's part of the architectural whole of the building. And to make it straight really is not, I don't think it's going to be appropriate. Isn't there any way to compromise so you could do this, but just replicate these corners and mix a wooden element with the rest of the composite you want to put there so that you can reduce the expense? It's that corner that I think is important. Those little turns.
Oh, you're talking about the rail itself, the corners and
Right,
the.
that I feel is an important item. I'm
Mhm.
not as hung up on this part of it, but I feel that is important to reflect the
Mhm.
architectural integrity of the building.
Mhm, mhm, mhm.
And I don't know if there's a way to combine that, so you don't have to do the whole thing in wood at great expense, but you can make a combination of the two items in order to get that curve again.
Okay.
Those are all my comments.
Mhm.
Thank you, Dennis. I'll ask Tim Whitney to make comments now.
Yeah, I mean, this is not a new issue about fixing windows versus inserts. I know you showed a slide of essentially you're putting a frame within a frame. Am I correct?
Correct.
The Markman is a frame that sits in the old. You take the old sashes out and you put a new frame that sits within the old frame
Correct.
with new sash. So there is it's dimensionally quite close, but it's not going to look exactly like the old windows. It's going to be a little bit different look with a frame within a frame.
Mhm.
So I share the concerns about that. You know, the challenge of making windows tight, old windows tight. I have it on my own house. I mean, there are ways to work on windows to make them tighter than they are now. So I share the concerns about just putting insert windows in, and then coming to the Widow's Walk. My comments, similar to Dennis, is there's a spacing of balusters, there's a chunkiness, there's a proportion and heaviness to that Widow's Walk. And when you put PVC, which may set the balusters further apart, we just don't want to lose the detail at the corners and the chunkiness, even if it's PVC, because that is so noticeable. So I have a lot of concerns about that as well. Those are my comments.
Thank you very much, Tim. Paul, you'd like to make some comments, please?
Yeah, I can't add to my colleague comment. I mean, I certainly share the concern about the historical detail, but I also think we have to defer to the owners in terms of updating this house from an energy standpoint. So I guess I can't add anything, and I'm interested in whether the architects feel they can accommodate the observations that have been made. I'm also not sure when here.
We can hear your last sentence. I think that something was a little garbled.
Yeah, I don't have anything substantive to add.
Okay, well, thanks very much, Walter.
My first question was, is there a known reason why some of the original windows were 6/6 and others were 1/1?
I suspect that it was a cost savings. I think that the ones that
In
you
original construction?
yeah, that the ones, it's kind of like clapboard versus shingles, like doing the clapboards on the front and the shingles on the side, present to the street. Most of the
I'm
windows.
sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you too hard, but so there was consistency in the areas of the house that are one or the other of those?
Yeah, so the third
Okay.
floor all had the 6/6. There were like two windows on the I guess if you're looking at this from the street, the right side elevation, and then there were a couple windows on the back wall. These are our new photographs, so we've subsequently changed them to, in previous renovations, to 1/1 window. So basically the whole first and second floor had the 1/1 windows, and the third floor had the grids to kind of pull everything together on a building.
Okay.
I just to jump in and say that Lisa's right. I think it's a cost situation, and the plates of that size, even in the 1880s, 90s, was still quite an expense. They were made by floating a molten glass over molten zinc and then cooling the whole thing. So it was a very expensive process. So this was the latest technology that you're seeing here, and it's expensive.
Yeah, well, I had a 1773 house larger than this, so I understand about the fenestration problems then. The first note that I made to myself on this was how much of the widow walk detail was potentially going to be lost, and conversation since has borne out what I feared. It wasn't very clear from the initial round of pictures as we looked through them. So I shared that concern looking at the house, just the design and the way that the roof draws the eye up. It takes you right up to that widow's walk. And again, it's a question of the money involved, but I would think that making those corners, even cutting them out of PVC and fabricating them, could be done, and it would not have to be extremely cost prohibitive. Of course, I haven't priced it out. I'm not the one who's looking for the quote, so I don't know for sure. But I share my fellow commissioners' concern about losing that detail. And as far as the windows go, and weights and ways to keep the originality of the windows, there are ways to spring load the sides with metal, whatever that will exert pressure against the sashes, and rather than balancing with a weight. That's one way to do it. The last thing I think I'm going to say about this is on my current house, we just had a series of inserts that go inside the windows made. We have a couple of fairly large window walls on the side of the house that were extremely drafty and getting condensation and the like. And putting in what are custom measured or tailor measured, and then spring loaded with a very fine rubber surround on it. They are magnificently successful. They've quieted the street noise. They have two different series of them. I won't make it a commercial endorsement for naming products. I figure probably shouldn't do that. But they are thermally wonderful and took the street noise right out in a way that I doubt even the Marvin inserts would. So that's another possibility. But I do, even before the meeting, that was one of my concerns, was losing the original windows. It was a way to keep them. I know it's a question of cost, and it's just a series of small compromises that are eventually made. None of them seem to be the straw that breaks the back, but taken as a whole, if there have not been thorough investigations of what the alternatives might be and costing them out, I think it would be premature to just say that the inserts and the Marvins would be the only or best way to do this.
I just had a question. The windows over at the library, the attachment of the historic building that was there, I know a lot of those windows were replaced we had done some research on those with Marvin units. It kind of looks like they did a sash replacement, kind of what you were talking about, Walter, where they have the spring jams, which is kind of what I was talking about with those insert kits or the jam replacement kits. But that does have you do a new sash. So I know that there have been other buildings that have had the windows replaced in them that are older than this, and I totally understand the concern. And it's kind of a toss-up like with the cost. I mean, they're going to spend a significant cost to replace all of these windows, but by replacing them, they're getting the insulation. They can refurbish the windows, they can put on new storms, and they'll probably spend as much doing that, and then they'll still have the air infiltration around the window. And so that's really kind of what we're weighing in terms of the heating this house and trying to not have such an impact on the environment.
Which is a noble pursuit.
Yep. The window, the close-up of the two windows, the storm with the old window with the storm. I know look-wise, they're different, but line-wise, you don't really see a lot of the sash in these windows. With the storms, they're really covered up, the sashes, and the same lines exist with the storms as the inserts happen. So look wise from the street, you know, I typically like to try and lead my clients to refurbishing the windows, but they're really concerned about the energy leakage that's coming out of this house right now.
It's, yeah, if I may just sort of jump in, it's extraordinary. So when you look at the front of the house, which is the slide a moment ago, I'm not sure what number that was. So the second floor on the right there, that's just to give you an example, that's our bedroom, right? So you've got one big window there, then to the right you've got the big bump out, which has got it's got a huge window in it, and then two other windows, side windows there. So it's extraordinary how much cold air comes in through that side. So look, I mean, we bought this house, we have spent a huge amount of time and money renovating it to be I remember when we sat in front of you guys probably 3 or 4 years ago, you know, I think the comment was all we were doing was making the house better, and we were doing that because we wanted to respect the historical nature of this house. That's why we bought the house. And here we are now a few years later, and the energy consumption is extraordinary, and it is a balance. And obviously, you know, you guys will make the decision, but I just wanted to make it very, very clear that this house is a sieve.
Have you had it shot and done an infrared?
Had it what? Sorry?
Have you done an infrared analysis of your heat leakage?
No, I'm sure that would be fascinating.
Well, it is, yes, and I think Mass Save would probably do that.
Well, I know how cold we are.
I
don't need an infrared.
I understand completely and thoroughly. And in my current house, we have a bump out on the side, which I was talking about with the window inserts, and the same thing. There are doors to our bedroom, and it's off our bedroom, that we have to keep closed because otherwise it is freezing, despite there being a radiator out there. That's been transformed, frankly, recently, but yeah. I do understand what you're saying.
We have towels wrapped up in our windows to try and keep the cold out.
Yeah, sure.
Absolutely. Doesn't seem very modern.
Absolutely understood.
To keep a house efficient.
Yeah. Do you have insulation? Sorry, I don't mean to monopolize all this, but is there insulation in the walls of the house that you're aware of currently?
When we did the various bits of renovation, and because we did a lot, right? Every time we did something, because most of it was internal, we only sort of cleaned up the back of the house, but every time we could get a hose in to fill, we filled. But it was a 2-year, well, yeah, 2-year project, and we always knew this would be kind of a third phase, the windows. In hindsight, perhaps we should have just done the whole thing at the same time, but from a cost perspective, we left it. But yeah, so the windows that are left, so everything on the left there, everything on the right, and around the side. So you'll remember possibly on the left-hand side of the house is it's a beautiful bay window, which is the living room, and that that really does get the cold. So all around that side of the house, on both sides of the house, there is next to no insulation now. It's all of it's basically on the back, which is where
The hard part with a lot of these houses is they're back plastered. So when they put the plaster in the wall, it just kind of falls through the lath, and so they're full of junk and wood and things like that. We've run into that in a couple of the other houses. So trying to blow in some insulation that kind of gets trapped, and so there's definitely pockets that are difficult to fill. So unless you're kind of taking off and replacing the siding, or taking off the plaster and lath on the inside and cleaning it up, it's difficult to get any insulation in.
Yeah, I've been through it several times. I understand.
Thank you, Walter. I will try to make comments as short as possible. I agree with the restoration of the Widow's Walk, that it should be a exact restoration as it is right now, with a mix of materials in order to accomplish that purpose. In terms of the windows, I understand very well the applicant, and I think that some of us, at least Walter, and certainly myself, we have been there with leaks and so forth. But I have a couple of questions to both the architect and the owner, which is that we are certain that these are the original windows that this house came with.
Yes.
Okay. So from that perspective, I don't think that this commission has any mandate or to say anything different from making the thing look as it was before. But there's no question that, as indicated by our town planner, these windows, when they were installed, may not have reflected necessarily the style of the time. So that is something for the architect and the owner to entertain. I don't know if we can see slide number 4, which is a picture of the original house, and I don't think that it's going to show. It's showing exactly the same window. So you are absolutely correct. Those are the original windows. But the point I'm making is that here's an opportunity to make a better historic reference by correcting something that originally may not have been done entirely accurately. Of course, that would go against the principle of maintaining the structure as it was, but it would go for the principle of establishing accurate historical references. But this is a point just to consider, because it would be something that may come up down the road where the applicant may have the opportunity to do so. And I think that this commission would have an interesting discussion in implementing this change. The issue of the windows, I think that I was impressed by the comment of Dennis that said that the windows in those days were very expensive to make. So I'm sure that there was an element of savings and economy when these windows were installed originally. So from that perspective, I don't believe that I'm personally committed to having something that it's not a practical application of the technology and the resources that exist today, which is historically what was done when the house was originally built. So from that perspective, I understand that these are original windows and that they could be restored, but I think that this is one of those settings where the effort made in restoring this type of initial implementation, it's not worth the cost and the loss in efficiencies that it would carry. So from that perspective, I would not have much trouble in saying that you should restore all the windows, make them look exactly the way they look right now, but they will be modern windows. And of course, Dennis will shoot me, but that's it's one of 5 perspectives. So those are my comments. I'll ask now for public comments. Are there any public comments about the 252 Main Street application? Well, I'll ask the applicant whether any of the comments that have been made by the commissioners suggest that there's something that could change in the design as you have that is currently submitted. Meaning that maybe you want to change something or you want to add something. I think that the Widow's Walk requires a detailed submission in terms of how the suggestion will be implemented. But I think you have heard several opinions about the windows, and from that perspective, you may have the grounds to consider options that are either more efficient, more economical, or more historically mindful. So, if you think that you want to make changes to the application, then I will suggest our commissioners that we continue the application. Otherwise, we will ask for a vote. So, what would be your preference?
Well, just on the Widow's Walk, I mean, just to underscore something Lisa said, it's nigh on impossible to get up there, right? You go through this tiny hole to get up there, which you do by having a ladder over some stairs, right? It's not a particularly nice place to get up to. So the maintenance up there is atrocious, which is why we were looking at PVC. We will look at whether we can do a hybrid. I don't know if that's possible, but we certainly will go away and look at it, because it was the whole putting it in wood. So we'll take that away. In terms of the windows, I mean, I suppose I'm ultimately confused about. I think I'm hearing historical, don't replace, all this kind of stuff. So I think what I heard was that it's a no based on what we're proposing. I don't know. It seems like the only option we have, because we're not going to leave it the way it is. Sorry, that is the option we have, is to leave it the way it is and just continue to waste money. The idea that Walter was saying about the spring loading and the rubber, and I am clearly no window engineer, so would be keen to understand what that is, because obviously if there's an alternative that ultimately does 2 things, right? One, it makes the house sounder, structurally sound, I mean, right? Because right now we can't open windows, we can't do this, we can't do that. And the second thing is that it becomes energy efficient, because it's completely and utterly wasting money, which I'm sure no one is wanting to support. So if we can do those 2 things, then great, with an alternative. If we can't, then we will just leave it the way it is, because replacing is an extortionate amount of money, and we wouldn't be guaranteed the energy efficiency. At least that's what we've been told. So we can go away and research that.
Well, I may clarify that you should not infer that the application will be voted up or down by the comments of the commissioners. The other purpose of the comments is precisely to provide different perspectives that the applicant may consider. And we fully understand the rationale of the work that we are proposing. And actually, we encourage it. And our job is to facilitate it while keeping the historic references of this house, which is in a very prominent place. And it's actually a beautiful house. So that's the reason that I think that it would be wise to entertain all the possibilities. There may be an option that is marginally more costly or marginally more economical. that may maintain the goals that you are seeking, and at the same time the historic references. So that's the reason that I think that you would like to. It will be beneficial for both the applicant and the architect to continue the application, but of course we will not suggest that unless you agree.
Dennis,
So
do you
you're-
have another comment?
Yeah, Dennis made a comment.
I think I was not the first one. I guess what I was going to say very quickly is that, you know, it's not in our decisions over time. It's not always been an either or. For instance, I look back at what we did at the Masonic Lodge, where we on the side of that building, we told them they could replace the windows, but to keep the ones in the front, so that at least they saved some original windows and the original impact on the street was the same. That's a compromise that we've done in the past. The other is, and I think we're doing this with River Cottage up on Liberty. They've agreed to look into restoring the windows, but we've told them to come back to us if they see that that's can't be done in a manner that would be efficient for the house. So it is a fallback. So I don't know if you've met with a window restoration person and looked at the options for restoring the windows. So I think it's one of those things. If I were you, I'd step back and take a look at some options and come back again with some compromises that we might be willing to take in order to save some of the windows in that house, but maybe meet part of your goal, which is replacing others.
Mhm.
Thank you, Dennis. I think Paul had a comment I don't want to go through, and so the architect can make answers at the same time.
Yeah, I don't want to speak for other commissioners, but I think what Luis was trying to say and what I agree with is that there's a spectrum of perfection here. Obviously, total restoration to its original condition is on one end of that spectrum, and simple replacement with contemporary windows that are energy efficient is on the other. So I think what we're all trying to do is to encourage you to take a step back and see whether there are some compromises that can be made, which are affordable in this context, but which also serve your energy purposes. In short, I don't think you should infer that we're going to vote against this, no matter what you propose, unless it's perfection.
Thank you, Paul.
Yeah.
Well, I think that Walter had a comment
Two things.
last time. Last comment.
One is my sense is that owner and architect that you're thinking that it's an either wood or PVC to maintain the original look of that Widow's Walk, and I don't think that's what anybody here has said. I understand the great benefit to having PVC when you're up that high. And parenthetically, I'm also wondering if you're going to have to OSHA stage it anyway for doing the work, and therefore the ladder over the stair wouldn't be a concern because it won't be in play. But I don't think what I was initially suggesting about making those curved pieces in PVC wasn't that would be the only part of the structure in PVC and everything had to stay wood, whatever. I personally don't see any problem with doing the entire thing in PVC, just not being a slavish adherent to the need to have everything be a straight line. And PVC, when PVC is a pretty wonderful material that can be shaped and frankly, it can be molded. I mean, if you want to get extremely custom on something, that's not what you want to hear. But it's a versatile material, and that curve could certainly be fabricated in PVC. The entire structure up there could be in PVC if it had the look of the original. I don't think anyone's going to be opposed to that. And then the maintenance is the same as if it were all straight.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks very much, Walter. I will ask the commission now for a motion. The motion may be to continue, to approve with conditions, or to reject. So may I hear a motion?
Could we ask for a continuance?
If you wish a continuance, that will be taken into account for the commission for the commissioners to make a motion. So I will rephrase the request, and I will ask the commissioners for a motion to continue the application of 252 Main Street.
I move that we continue the application for 252 Main Street.
Second,
Second.
Walter,
Yes.
Dennis,
Yes.
Paul,
Yeah.
Timothy. You're muted.
Sorry about that. Yes.
Yes, and I'm a yes as well. So we'll continue the application to, when is the next meeting, Haley?
April 6th. April 6th.
Is Haley, it's muted.
Sorry about that. I forgot I was muted. Yes, April 6th.
Okay, so we will continue the application to the meeting of April 6th. And we look forward to any changes or any responses to the suggestions that the commissioners have made. And thanks very much for your presentation and for the thorough presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, the next application, it's Concord Free Public Library, 129 Main Street, to install stone terrace, granite pavers, and other landscaping modifications. I see a whole group here. Ms. Clymer, welcome.
Thank you. We're very excited about this project. I don't think Kim Ahern, our landscape architect, really needs an introduction. Many of you know her because she has been the designer for the grounds of the library for over 20 years and has done some wonderful piece of work. So, but this parcel on Sudbury Road was developed initially, or the last time in about 2003, when we made some changes on the Sudbury Road entrance into a reading garden with a lawn area and plantings and so forth. And over time, that has not been sustainable and worked well. So we now are looking to make a change. And I think Kim's plan for doing this change is quite exciting, and I'll let her describe it to you.
Thanks very much, Di. Kim, please, welcome.
Thank you. I've seen most of you before, I think. Thanks for having us. Do we have the drawings, Haley, to put up?
Which would you like first? Would you like the landscape garden plan?
I think the existing conditions might be good. I think there are 3 of them. So yeah, I'll just kind of piggyback on to what Di was talking about. We had designed a garden there with a small lawn and reused the benches that were as part in the garden to begin with. But it was so popular that the grass got really just, it just wouldn't grow after a while. And also the trees were doing really well that we planted. So between the shade and the popularity, we found that the grass really didn't work there anymore. So I think the interim thought was just to put mulch down for now. And it was, during COVID too, we wanted people to be able to go outside, and the librarians brought tables out, and I think they brought out a tent at one point, or an overhang. So we wanted to kind of minimize the mulch here. Could you go back to slide maybe 2? There we go. So it's really, a sea of mulch here, really uninteresting and actually kind of hard to walk around. So if we kind of came up with an idea that we wanted the place to be still flexible so that the librarians could still bring chairs or tables out. The place would, you know, be interesting and different from the other places that we've designed in other parts of the library. Do you see a colored one, Haley?
Yep.
Colored rendered plan? Okay, so this zooms in a little bit, but so what we were thinking is looking around Concord, you know, we try to find imagery that, you know, and some meaning for, you know, to bring into the landscape. So one thing that I've noticed a lot in all the years I've gone through Concord are these wonderful sort of old foundations of buildings that, or barns that, that barns don't exist, but there's this great foundation left. So that was kind of one of the thoughts for bringing an edge to this place and to hold people in, not to have it be, you know, just bleed out onto Sudbury Road or just kind of, just kind of just move too much like liquid, really. We wanted the landscape to really hold people in, but retain the flexibility. So these, that square would be made up of granite blocks, and we have a picture of that. So we were thinking that scales on these granite blocks that are kind of imitate or could be even foundation stones. So it would be a seat wall all around that area. And then we were thinking for the paving, and this is all depending on the price, and we've had a few come in, but the two alternatives would be either to pave the center portion with the pavers shown on the bottom, two pictures, or put stone dust down, which was obviously less expensive, but in thinking about it, we kind of came to the conclusion we might even like that better in terms of design. It's a little softer. It's I don't know. We have stone dust in other parts of the library. In the children's library, we've got stone dust paths, and some of the sidewalks around this area near the library are stone dust. So it's a material that's used frequently here. So if we go back to the plan, I know you folks probably don't really, I don't think you care too much about the planting, but I'll just say very quickly, there's a real move in Concord, as you probably know, with the sustainability committee to use native plants. So all these new forming edge of this garden would own natives, food ferns, and other shade-loving perennials. And the idea too is to put one of these plants in the library so that people can, you know, learn about the plants. Not just, we wouldn't just plant them and that's it, but people would start to know, oh, we could use that in our yard and it's a native plant. So there's an educational component to it too. So I think that might be all I have. Di, do you want to add anything else?
I don't think so. I love the fact that it's contained, that not with a high wall, but with a low wall that you can sit on. And yet, as you can see in a couple of areas, there are exits through that area, and there's the stone dust path on the outside, and there are benches out there too. So I think it's going to be very welcoming and very versatile. And I think will enhance the view of the Sudbury roadside. If you realize or see the Sudbury roadside entrance has a lot of the gray stone and concrete as well as the brick. And I think this stone terrace is going to really complement the entrance. And I think it'll be very popular.
Thank you very much, Dai and Kim. I'll ask the commissioners for comments. I'll start with Walter.
I like the idea of natives quite a bit, I'll say, as a start. And that's a wonderful thing. The reference to barn foundation makes an awful lot of sense in terms of history and Concord. I found myself drifting down the street a bit to the tavern and looking at granite block seating, which is something that we had visited, I believe, at our last meeting. So this would potentially be bookends from one to the other end of Main Street there. That's certainly something to consider on a larger level. It sounds to me like there aren't any hard decisions about materials and all here. So are we being asked to look at the plan overall as and not focus on the details, or is this an interim step?
You are welcome to focus on anything.
Well, no, it's just it could be granite, it could be stone dust, it could be whatever, there's brick here. Is this pretty well set for these being the materials that would be used at this point? Are we being asked to approve these materials in situ here?
Yes, I think so. I should say that it looks like, given the pricing that we've had so far, and I think it probably would be stone dust. On the plans, which are basically a working drawing, it does say it's either or. And I think at this point, we're thinking it would probably, if it's approved, would probably be stone dust.
Do you have a sense of how long stone dust is going to last in place here?
Well, this is a good.
The grass was pretty much eradicated by usage. Stone dust
Right.
stable enough for you?
Yeah, this would also have the stabilizer in it, which we used in the children's garden. So it binds it a little bit better.
Sure.
And that is important for accessibility for wheelchairs.
Having it bound, yeah. Well, stone, even I would think with a binder, stone dust is not going to be the best choice for accessibility that way if you're concerned about wheelchairs. That's certainly something to consider.
Thank you, Walter. I'll ask Dennis for comments.
I don't have many. I think it looks like a good plan. Do we really see much of this from Sudbury Road? I go into this entrance all the time, and I don't really see much where this is going.
No, it's pretty hidden with the shrubs, which is one of what we really wanted to do too, is make it a sort of a hidden garden. So
Right.
no, you won't see it from Sudbury Road. In fact, we're adding some evergreens where the transformer is. So it will even be a little bit more secluded, I think.
Yeah. The focusing on the wall, those are granite blocks then, similar to what's I think Walter referred to down the street. Is that the same sort of thing that you're going to put around the edge?
Right, yeah, there would be like, it comes sometimes from seawalls and sometimes from real foundations. It's funny on Route, every time I go around there's a construction site right behind that gas station. And there are these same blocks there. And I'm going to call the DPW and see if they're owned by Concord. And so it would be kind of nice to, get some blocks right from the same town. But yes, it would be just the granite blocks, the kind of long rectangular blocks.
And much better than Jersey barriers.
A little bit.
But they're thinner. They're like old stone wall, old foundation walls rather than the thick pieces.
Right.
Yes, so they're about 18 inches thick by 18 inches high. and
So
what,
they
you
are
know,
some
different
steps.
lengths.
Right, right. I had no other questions. It's fine, thanks.
Thank you, Dennis. Paul?
It seems conceptually pretty simple, but I was just wondering, is this the kind of thing for which we should have a site visit? It doesn't look very controversial, but I must say I can't, just picture in my mind's eye except for what we're talking. Obviously, I can go there informally.
Well, certainly that's a prerogative, and I'm sure that there are other commissioners that will feel strongly about a site visit. But you know, you certainly can make that motion.
I mean, if no one thinks that's necessary, I won't do that. Personally, I want to take.
We cannot hear you. You are moving between two.
I'm not muted. I'm not sure why I'm creating it.
Okay.
But I favor a site visit. I'm not going to insist if other commissioners don't feel we need it.
I think it's a good idea.
All right. Let's get to that when we come to after the comments of all commissioners and after public comments. Do you have any other comments, Paul?
No.
Okay. Thank you, Timothy.
Yeah, no, I like the plan. I think it's just a nice, simple. I went and looked at the site, and I think it's going to be very quiet back in there. I do have one question. Is there any lighting associated with this, or is this not lit?
No, we don't have any lighting.
Okay. And just another comment on the stone dust is just, I like the idea. It's just having stone dust in contrast with this granite seat walls just seems a little softer and gentler, but obviously if you have granite slabs in there, that's going to look pretty outstanding as well. So I think it's a very nice plan. I have no other comments.
Thank you very much, Tim. My impression of the project is that this is a project that can go on any direction in the sense that we are not restoring anything that was there. We don't have anything to worry about previous events in history. So that provides a wonderful opportunity to make something that would be iconic in the visuals of Concord and of the library in particular. So it's a big opportunity to create something that could be remembered for many, many years to come. And I think that that's where the greatest responsibility lies, both in terms of the library and the designer and our commission as such. I have some areas that I would like to have clarified, which is the first one is that you have a great sense of issues of sustainability and ecological balance. But what I see is a very large impervious surface made with a stone, which to me it's a cold material. It's something that unless applied in very particular ways, it may not be friendly, and it may appear as a very large swatch of a solid surface, which may not be as welcoming deeply in the soul of the person who sits there as any other options. In addition to that, I believe that this will be an impervious surface, and you may tell me that the stone dust will make it permeable to water, but I'm not so sure. So I wonder if there was consideration of using a different type of a material that would mix a solid surface with grass. You see, there are many ways that you can mix pavers and combine things so grass grows in between. I understand that people are going to be trampling over the grass, but you know, there are many surfaces in Concord that have exactly that treatment, And actually, they work very well when during the time that the people are using them. I believe that this will be very important in order to provide a sense of a human welcoming to the area instead of this wide area that it's visually almost barren. So that's to me the main concern that I have about the project. The more I look at it visually, I'm concerned with the very large space, with the lack of any focus point or attention point that occurs within the square itself. I'm wondering if you consider putting a decorative element either in the center, such as, for example, a fountain where birds would come over and enjoy the environment, or some other type of a structure that breaks the visual sights, so people are entertained by other things that appear between the edge of the space and the space itself. I have no objections whatsoever with the treatment of the landscape. Landscape architects will have lots of fascinating discussions about what is a native plant, because native plants every 200 or 300 years replace themselves completely, and the newcomers are now native, and the current newcomers will be the natives of 50 years from now. But that's something that it's not really relevant to our commission. But my concern is the large, uniform, uninterrupted area in the center, which I believe that from an landscape architectural standpoint would benefit from having points of interest, interruptions to the visual range, and so forth. Thanks very much for your presentation. I'm going to ask for public comments. Any public comments?
Could I respond to a couple of things you said before you?
Why don't we leave the additional comments to the end of the public comments, because some of these comments may come up at the same time, and I'm sure that some of the things that I've said have very straightforward answers, and you already consider them. So, and that's the reason that you are so eager to answer. But let's let the public have an opportunity, and then you will have an opportunity to explain everything at the end.
Okay.
I read Fresley. Could you please identify yourself?
I'm Nancy Frasella Lee, 140 Walden Street. And I really like the chair's comments about that. As I'm going to the library now with my granddaughter and going into that entrance, I think, well, that's an area that's going to attract children too. So I'm just thinking that without decorative elements inside, it is, I like the idea of people sitting around. I think of the old manse. There's the barn that burned down there, and that's a space that is bordered by stones, like you're suggesting. And it is a very beautiful spot, but it's much larger, of course, and it has grass. So I do find that it would be a little bit cold in that space, and you could even consider maybe putting planters. And I wondered if you've considered having anything like an arbor entrance that would make it really like a secret garden, for example. And one thing I just want to ask you about, on the side that's closest to the building, I'm reading a stone dust, and I can't tell whether you mean that to be a path, and there's an entrance in that side too. And then you have the relocation of those benches, those stone benches. And I just wonder what was going to happen to that area, because it doesn't look like you have greenery there. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Nancy. Any other public comments? So it looks like there's a lot of people, but there are no comments. So I'll ask Kim and Dai now to respond to the comments.
Okay. So to start with yours, we did think about the, the surface, obviously, inside. We went through a few different schemes where we had brick, and all of this would be on, stone dust and permeable breaks in it. But we didn't want it to look too residential. So at one point we had bluestone, we had brick and bluestone, and we kind of put that aside. We did have some arbor designs with arbors. I think we listened to the library director, who really wanted the flexibility in the space to even put in a tent inside. So that's one reason why we didn't put an object in the middle or off to the side, although I do think that would look very nice, but it would not allow her to have the flexibility that she was looking for. In terms of the grass pavers, I've used those on projects, and what I find is especially in a shady situation like this one is, the grass won't grow after a while. And you're left with a grid, which is interesting. It's a very modern look, but I think it would be difficult to maintain a lawn in there, because we've tried to do that in the traditional way and it didn't work after a while. So as much as I like the idea of it, I'm not sure it would be a lawn or grass in there for more than a year or two. And to answer the other question, that is a stone dust path that would come out through the break in the wall. And then there are 2 benches that are on site now. They'd be relocated you can see them down sort of off to the left-hand side there.
Thank you very much, Kim. I would suggest to the commission that we make a site visit. I think that it is a very interesting space, and that we should all become familiar physically with it. So that would be my suggestion to the commission. But now I will ask the commission for a motion. Anyone wants to make a motion?
You want a motion to continue or a motion for a site visit?
You can, the motion to continue includes a site visit. If we want to have a site visit, we have to continue the application.
Well, I move that we have a site visit at the earliest convenience to everyone